the most powerful decks. I know that some of you guys checked out yesterday's video was like,
Mommy, you forgot about my deck.
I probably forgot about it again. Kind of like how our dad forgot to bring us milk. I had cereal. I had to drink it with water. I really hope that I did not forget your deck, but if I did, let me know down below in the comment section. I will try to include it in another tier list, or maybe it's a deck that I've already considered and put it in another tier list. Of course, before we get into this video, I want to give a mad shout out to everyone that has supported me on a Patreon. Thank you guys so much for helping me pay my editors. I really do appreciate you guys. But don't worry, guys, I appreciate you all, especially my big damage steppers that have been sharing these videos. And if you haven't shared it with a friend, now's the time. Of course, in this tier list, I have 5 different categories, S through C, and then, oh no, what are you doing, baby? One thing I want to note on this tier list is that every single deck from S to C, I believe can win on a competitive level. It's just the ease of these decks winning the higher the competition is. These are going to be the defining criteria of what I think of these particular competitive decks. So without further ado, let's jump on in. Let's go ahead and start off with Black Wings. Black Wings are easily a solid C tier Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Now, if this were a little bit earlier, like before the Forbidden List dropped, this would have easily, in my book, been a B or possibly even an A tier deck. It has so many amazing things. Being able to Exceed Summon into Rolo, which is a great graveyard disruptor card. And also, players have figured out how to make some synchro boards without using your entire extra deck. Unfortunately though, the cards off the Forbidden List did not help Black Wings, some of them even hurt them. Cards like Dimensional Fissure and Macrocosmos are to Black Wings' detriment, and the new Constellar Exceed monster just so happens to be a light monster and not a dark monster, and Black Wings with Black Wings Simoon locks you in the dark. On the other hand, Crystal Beast just keeps on benefiting from ban list and new cards. Not only does Dimensional Fissure and Macrocosmos, you guys are going to hear that a lot, are of great need for Crystal Beast. Being able to get Metaverse for easier access to build spells like Necro Valley is huge. Still to this day, the best version of Crystal Beast will be the Conclave Control version. That card is absolutely insane, being able to bounce monsters to the hand and reuse Crystal Beast monsters. Normal Summon Alibur. This is the best deck in the universe. My branded boys, you guys are genuine damage steppers, but where would I put Despia? Well, Despia is actually in a really interesting spot. I think that Mirage Aid isn't as good, which is kind of a good thing because of Dimensional Fissure and Macrocosmos, but this deck can actually play both of them. I think that gives it a solid B ranking. This is one of the only fusion decks that can play those graveyard removal cards and completely not care. On top of that, being able to summon double to triple Tax Dragon, Masquerade the Blazing Dragon can ruin some of the top tier Yu-Gi-Oh strategies that want to activate a lot of card effects. I feel that Draco Slayer does get a little bit devalued. One of the better things about Draco Slayer was searching a field spell, but because of Metaverse, almost any deck can search field spells now too, but this is still really good. My friend, the Draco Slayer cards are still not hard once per turns. Get rid of your monsters like Ignister and bring them right back in attack. Hands down, this is one of the most exciting, fun, brilliant Pendulum decks, and I really think it's an awesome deck right now. Now, normally I'd put the EXO Stepsisters right into the dryer. I'm gonna say that it is one of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. My friend, we've already talked about this on yesterday's video. EXO Sisters? EXO Sister losing Mystic Mind, but replacing it for more access to cards like Necro Valley, and then giving it the Constellar Exceed monster help combat against dark decks, but also allow you to summon monsters like Cyber Dragon Infinity? This is insane. Fluunderies did nothing but get better from the Forbidden List. At the very worst, this isn't a tier 0 format, this is a 2-deck format with Fluunderies and Tearlaments fighting for the top spot. And while I'm here, we're just gonna go ahead and put Tearlaments right here too. Like this is pretty, I think this is unanimous. I would put Tearlaments still above the Fluunderies, though this deck did suffer a lot of huge losses. We will get a new Dark World structure deck for everyone on December 2nd, and Dark World is going to be powerful. Now, to put things in perspective, there are some cards that are going wrong for Dark World. Take, for example, cards like Necrovalley, the Bestials, Dimensional Shifter, Dimensional Fissure, and Macrocosmos. But other than that, I mean, yo, go play Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Worlds are good. Ignore the haters, guys. A skilled Dark World player won't be playing cards like Dark World Dealings to trigger tier limit monsters on your opponent's turn. They are going to be playing a Dark World deck that can accumulate so many resources and summon the new Grapha monster because that card's ridiculous. I haven't put Grinmaju in a tier list in so long, it feels like, yo, should we put it here? But no, it's really good. Stun decks have already been doing extremely well. I personally think that a stun version of Grinmaju would just be really good right now. Use stun cards like Inspector Porter or Necrovalley to keep your opponent at bay, and just when they thought that they could play through all of that, bam, hit them with a Grinmaju. They don't see what's coming, or even more importantly, set the 20,000 defense Grinmaju and let them attack into it. Genuine chaotic evil. We might be there. We just might be there. Castira are already doing fairly well in a tier 0 format with Macro and DeFi. Easy S tier. My guys, before we go any further, a rank 4 engine could be played in Castira, seeing that they don't need their normal summon. They can make Dweller and Diamond and Ptolemy 7 and Cyber Dragon Infinity 2. Also with Castira Unicorn, oh my god, the deck is just ridiculous. Where would I put Mommy Milkers, the Labyrinth deck, guys? This deck is extra saucy. Now, while the Labyrinth cards can't necessarily use a lot of cards that came off of the Forbidden list, players do forget this deck can set and reuse different dimension ground. My guys, that is actually huge, having a dimensional fissure that you can search and then activate. Also, keep in mind, Labyrinth isn't necessarily dependent on its graveyard. It's just really nice to have it. Earth Machine, baby! The new support from the set. The new support from Battles of Legends Crystal Revenge makes this deck so solid. I love that Clockwork Knight can search any Earth Machine, especially Therion King Regulus. Just right now might not be the best time. I've actually been experimenting with Earth Machine as a going second OTK type deck. It does become a little bit harder with Dimensional Fissure, but it's still very much possible. I mean, who knows? Sometimes you don't need your normal summon, so just take a Grinmaju in there, right? Don't do that, guys. Don't do that. Madolche was already mainboarding and looping Dimensional Shifter, and yes, it did lose Herald of Orange Light, but now it has Dimensional Fissure and Cosmic Cyclone. That's pretty good. Now, I was playing a version of this deck on stream that searched Necrovalley until I realized that that's not always the best card to search. So keep in mind, Madolche players, Necrovalley could actually really hurt you. I think that this deck would probably be closer to the cusp of the BC tier, but I'm going to go ahead and give it the nod because of Dimensional Shifter. Math Mech is a solid C tier Yu-Gi-Oh deck. The only problem with Math Mech is that your Math Mech monsters that are extenders lock you into Cybers. Other than that, if you can make any rank 4, you know where I'm going with this. The deck is kind of graveyard reliant, but on the other hand, it can also search Macrocosmos and Dimensional Fissure. I mean, if you already got a board set up and your opponent needs to send cards from their deck to the graveyard, that could be a thing. I think that Notoria's lost a little bit of footing as compared to our last tier list. This deck can still make Exceed 4s, which is really, really good, and still has all of the extra deck space available, so I think it'll still survive and it'll be really solid. Punk will forever be my favorite project deck over the last few months. I think that it's a solid C tier, nothing really to gain from it, though Punk Castira, we've been playing with it and we've been getting some good results. Rockets are unfortunately clear-cut losers here. Not only do they have to deal with Necrovalley a lot more in theory, they also would have to deal with Zombie World if players started playing that for their metaverses. Overall, this deck is still really solid because of the Bestial monsters working better with this deck, better than any other deck here, which gives you interactions on a lot of your opponent's graveyard reliant decks. One thing that me and the boys been digging around with is Runic, because this deck is really interesting. Unfortunately, a pure Runic deck due to the Mystic Mind ban? Yeah, that feels about right. My guys, you can now no longer sit on a Mystic Mind and hope to deck your opponent out. And Runic Sprite, I mean, that felt like a fad, let's just be real. Now, I could be wrong, but my thoughts on Runic is if you're playing Runic Sprite, just play Sprite. You get some cards that can really disrupt the meta extremely well, and since you don't have Mind to rely on to be able to stall for turns until you get your Fountain, you're in an interesting spot. Scarecrow is in such an interesting spot. It isn't really graveyard reliant, it's still really powerful. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the C tier. The game plan is still really simple. Go into a Scareclaw tryhard and attack as many times as you want to for game Of course, use your adventure cards to be able to proc into that, and then even use the Castira cards to help you break your opponent's board. Without the use of Mystic Mine, Sky Striker is probably going to be an OTK type deck. You want to use Sky Striker linkage and get as many copies to your hand to be able to turn your Sky Strikers into another in the battle phase. That might be Sky Striker's best bet. But losing Mystic Mine to help you control the tempo of the game, as well as potentially losing your Sky Striker spell and trap cards to a Macro Cosmos, I think that could be huge. Dimensional Fissure, though, may be pretty useful in this deck. Maybe. Sprite back to claim its throne as an S-tier Yu-Gi-Oh deck. It's not ultra reliant on the graveyard. I mean, not ultra enough reliant to not play cards like Dimensional Shifter to screw over tier elements. I think that it's still going to be fairly competitive. Sword Soul has actually been doing extremely well as a going second OTK type deck. I'm gonna say B tier. I think that Sword Soul has the opportunities to go second and finish your opponent's board extremely fast with cards like Boxia and Vashuda. I think that will be really important for Sword Soul moving forward. I also think that Tri-Brigades, oh my god, this could be opium because it could be a B tier, but I'ma put it in the A. Bro, Tri-Brigade Lira Loss got some insane support off the Forbidden List. Recital Starling allowing you to search cards like DD Crow. It is a deck that is graveyard reliant, but the Lira Loss cards help you mitigate that and still play through disruptions. This deck is almost everything you would want for a graveyard reliant deck. And keep in mind, Tri-Brigade Revolt can still special summon banished BBWs to be able to link summon. Tri-Brigade just might be the best graveyard reliant Yu-Gi-Oh deck right now. I might even give you guys a deck profile. Virtual World. Come on guys. Oh no, what are you doing, baby? I'm so sorry, Virtual World. I just don't see it ever getting close. Virtual World feels like it's in a terrible spot. Not only can it sometimes be inconsistent, but on top of that, if players are going to be playing more macro-like cards, that means that a lot of times you won't be able to even use your Virtual World monster effects. And lastly, ironically, Zodiac is ridiculously good. Zodiac Dryden Ban does not stop this deck, but being able to play all of the toxic banishment cards, as well as freely make a Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, well, that could probably clap up your opponent a lot of times. And that is all that I have for the most powerful Yu-Gi-Oh decks tier list. I want to know, did I put a strategy too low? Did I put a strategy too high? And also which strategies that I missed. It's been exciting playing around with these decks with these new cards, and I can't wait to see the format unfold. But until then, you probably should click on one of these videos, because you're a true damage stepper, right? Right? You're gonna click on it.